Good evening or good morning, everyone. How's it going? This is Donald. It is Friday, April 24th, early morning, or late Thursday night if you want to call it. I'm back to do another podcast. I just checked on my computer when the last one I did was, and it was literally about 20 days ago, so almost 3 weeks. So I thought maybe time to jump back in here, check in, and see how everyone's doing, and also give everyone an update of what I've been up to. If you're a follower of me on Facebook, you know the first thing that what I've been doing is obviously looking for work or a job. Before I go into my details, obviously things have drastically changed since this lockdown has occurred. A lot of people have lost their jobs all around the country and whatnot. So I hope everyone, if anyone who's listening to this has lost a job, I hope you do stay positive. I hope you've gotten your unemployment set up. If you haven't, do the best you can to get in. I know the website was struggling a little bit apparently today, and also even the last couple of weeks when things kind of went crazy. But try to be optimistic. The unemployment should be able to sustain folks at least for a little bit. For most people, there may be some who it may not. And but regardless, I hope things will get better over time. I know it's a stressful time. For some, maybe you haven't been unemployed, or maybe you've got a lot of tough things to go through. I empathize with you. I've been laid off a lot of times in the past. Never been stuck in such a crazy situation or in situations where money is super, super tight. But I do wish the best for everybody if you're in a tough situation, and I hope you can get the help that you do need. That being said, going back to what I first started about was I've been looking for work. As if you've listened to this podcast, the prior ones, the last few weeks, I got laid off back in February. So I've been looking for jobs. I had a few, interviews early on, phone screens with recruiters, talked to some managers, but nothing really went through. Recently, I got an opportunity for a fairly large company, which I won't name here, but I'm familiar with them for various reasons. And I talked to their recruiter. I was fully expecting, when talking to this recruiter, to have the recruiter be kind of the screener. That was what I'm used to, right? Have a recruiter screen you. They make a determination of whether or not they want to pass you along and whatnot. The interesting thing for this particular company and the recruiter was, she said, when I got your resume, she said, I passed your resume on to the hiring manager and among others who had submitted, and we let the manager decide who he wanted to maybe talk to further. And she said, you're one of them. But the difference was, rather than having me talk to the manager directly, at least at that point, I was directed to ultimately go to a website. Well, I actually used an app, sorry, but I was basically going to do a recorded video interview. Basically, rather than have a live person ask me questions, they had preset questions that were going to be asked of all their candidates that they were looking at. And I was going to record myself via, I could have done on a computer, on an iPad or a phone. I just chose the phone because it's just easier. And I answered 5 questions. That was basically my first round interview that I did. And that was about, I want to say 2.5 weeks ago. Can't quite remember the date. So I did it. I thought, the questions are fair. You always question whether you did it as best as you could. But, I submitted everything. I practiced a few times before actually answering the real questions. And fortunately, when you got to the real questions, you had the opportunity to basically, record an answer. And if you didn't like it, you had 2 additional chances to do it again. So I took advantage of those opportunities and recorded a couple of times and, submitted what I thought was my best answers, and we went on. So the good news was about a little over a week ago, I heard back, or actually not even a week ago, a few days later, I heard back that I was actually selected to go on to a second round. And so that second round interview was actually last Thursday. Unlike the first round where I recorded, responses, I was actually going to do, instead of an in-person meeting due to the circumstances with the virus, I was doing a Zoom meeting with 5 people, including my hiring manager. Besides my hiring manager, there were 2 other managers and 2 other sales engineers that were part of the group that I was going to interview with. Overall, I'm not going to go into all the little minutia of the questions they asked, but, I thought, I liked the team, the folks. They seemed to be nice people. I thought I got along with them. I think I did well enough in the interview to at least be considered for either the job or, to move on if there was a next round. And so when I got done, they actually told me, we're going to think about it. And, if things go well, you can move on to the next round kind of thing. So, and I thought I heard that I would find out a week later because it sounded like they had some other interviews that they had to go through. So I was a little surprised when the next day, which was Friday of last week, I was at home and I just happened to check my email late in the afternoon. I hadn't checked it for a few hours, and I saw a note from the recruiter saying, hey, they've already passed you on to the final round, and they wanted me to get some dates. We ended up settling on a date for the final round interview, which was actually on Wednesday or yesterday. Well, I'm recording, if you want to count tonight as Thursday night, it was on basically this week, Wednesday in the afternoon. So I was a little shocked. I was not expecting it to move that quickly, but you'll take it, right? I've to be perfectly honest, I've been very lucky in my job experience. I've worked for a long, long time for a few companies, but those long job intervals where I've worked, I've not had to interview all that much. I've basically interviewed, a few times with the jobs that I got, but obviously I've interviewed for other companies, when I've been laid off before. But, I haven't had to go like this deep into like a 3-round interview that I can remember. Maybe one other time, maybe 2 other times. And this final round was probably going to be the biggest challenge in the sense that I was talking to the vice president of the group, as well as a director and another manager who, based on my review of his LinkedIn profile, this particular manager was one hell of an employee, won a ton of awards, and sales, sales engineering, sales, if you win a lot of awards, you're doing something good. So I was, excuse me, feeling a little intimidated going into the meeting. So the meeting was Wednesday, and I thought it went okay. It was scheduled for an hour, and we were done in about 45 minutes. I thought I answered the questions all right. Like I said, if you saw my Facebook post, I never take a high or low ground. In fact, I may kind of go toward more the lower ground that, I could have done better. And that's just the way I am. I'm never going to say, oh, yeah, I completely crushed it. And I'm probably never going to say, oh, yeah, I completely screwed up, unless I know I did. I felt like I did what I needed to do to move on, or at least to get my point across, to show that I was interested, to show that, I could be a potential fit for the job. I will say for anyone who's listening that maybe, I don't know what kind of jobs people are looking for, but one suggestion that I've learned through this whole process of interviewing, before I talk about a couple other things, is, especially for this last round for me, I actually prepared for the interview. I had a career counselor I've been talking to since I've been laid off my prior job, so she was helpful. But her advice was great, but I actually had to take what she advised and took it one step further and dug into some things that the company I was talking to and some of their services and products and what they do. And fortunately, when I got asked by the vice president about what I knew about the company, and then after I talked about some of my research, he said, well, why don't you give me a little bit of a pitch, quote unquote, about, what you think are value propositions, what the positive aspects of the company are. And I mentioned one of their services that I saw. I mentioned I was a little surprised that, if you were to ask me before my interview, I would have said, I thought you guys were competing against one of the vendors that they had listed on their website as a partner, and that particular partner, that they were going to connect directly to partners. So, I was like, that's kind of interesting. As I dug in further, I saw that they made an acquisition of another company recently that could potentially allow them to compete better against that same partner that was listed. So I mentioned from a value proposition, right, I thought, hey, the company I'm talking to, you guys have some of these kind of advantages that the other company doesn't, and I said, if we could get that value proposition to the clients, they actually might like you guys and what you offer. And, I think if I were to ask what I did best, I think I'd probably say that was the part I did the best. The other stuff I thought I did okay. I don't know how to rate it. I'll just wait and see. So really the last part from a job perspective is, yeah, the interview's done. This past, the one on Wednesday was the last round and I'm done with it. So right now it's just a waiting game. I've talked to a few different people, right? Some people say, hey, you're almost a shoo-in if you get that far because they won't even look at people that they're not interested in. I said, no, that's good to know, but doesn't mean I'll get the job. There are some people I've read online, just curiosity looking at Google, who said, some people, they've already decided they might want you. They just wanted to check you out a little bit. So I'm like, okay, that would be nice. But again, I've never been this far, and I've never done this many rounds of interviews, and I can understand why based on talking to the company that they're very picky about who they want. So I'm sure if there's anything that comes up, it may hurt me. If they are interviewing a bunch of candidates, the difference between all of us may be very small. And if they feel like something's missing, something's missing. And, I'm not going to be too worried about it. I was talking to my friend today, actually a couple of people today. And, to be honest, as much as I'd be nice to get a job and just get back into the flow, you know what? I'm not sweating it. I'm very optimistic I can get another opportunity at some point. In fact, I had some friends who mentioned they might have jobs or recruiters who reached out. So, if things don't work out, you just got to keep trucking away. And that's the same thing I said earlier before I get started into my particular job situation is, it's a tough situation right now for some people, and it may be hard to get a job, and I understand. So that's why I said unemployment. Hopefully you can get that and at least get kind of something in the meantime. But if you're looking for work and you have the opportunity to look, I would look now, just because some companies are still hiring, and some people, because of their busy schedules, because of stuff going on, they may not be actually looking for work. Even if they're unemployed, you may have a better opportunity to get one of those coveted jobs depending on what you're looking for. That was a piece of advice from my career counselors. That's something I would suggest. And if you have questions about job hunting or anything about the unemployment stuff, just let me know. I've gone through the unemployment, not just this year, but I've went through it prior, and fortunately everything's online, plus and minus, right? When I did the unemployment thing about a month ago, it was literally right before the craziness happened, so I was able to get everything done in about a week and a half. I know now it's a little bit hard, but if you have questions about the forms or how things are going, let me know. I'll be glad to answer them. So that's my job situation. What else have I been doing? Well, a few things. I was reading for a while. So I read a book on like some speaking stuff. And I've been using some of the techniques I learned for my interviews. So it's been actually very useful. Another thing I had actually been doing was reading a programming book on a language called Python. That sort of got pushed aside recently due to an interview. I just didn't want to distract myself too much. I might get back into it depending on how much time I have. And one other thing I did was just do some studying also on some internet services, cloud stuff that Amazon sells. So it was interesting. I got a certificate, quote unquote, for just completing it. It's more of a completion certificate rather than like those official ones that you pay $100 to get your like a brand certificate. But it's good to get the completion. In fact, I will mention this, relating it back to the job interview I did Wednesday, was, the company I interviewed for was looking for some people who had some information and knowledge about it. So, that might have been a positive too, that I actually, I admitted that, hey, I don't know it in depth that much. I've played with it, but I did do some studying and whatnot. And I actually had some books ordered that I got recently to, study further if I needed to. So, maybe that will help, myself with the job prospects. So we'll see how that goes. And the last thing I've been really going into is cooking. Yes, might shock some people. I've been cooking. Now, before I get ahead of myself and people get the wrong idea, no, I'm not doing Iron Chef, Bobby Flay level type cooking, making all these crazy recipes and whatnot. What I originally started doing was I had a Instapot that I bought maybe around, I want to say Black Friday or one of those days. I can't remember what day I bought it, but I said, okay, let's get it. I'm home. When I'm home, my dad sometimes brings food, but, sometimes I have to cook, and I make generic pasta, like dry pasta sauce and whatnot. So nothing particularly special. But I said, let me get an Instapot. It seems to be the hot thing out there. A lot of people do it. And what have I done with it? Well, originally, I was trying to do beef stew. I love beef stew. When my mom was around back in the day when she was younger, when I was younger and when she was younger, she made some great beef stew, but she did it the old way. Like just cook it and let it sit for hours and hours. I don't want to deal with that. So I gave beef stew a shot in my pot, and it was okay. I put too much water in it. I think it became more of like a soup. But the beef was okay, and whatnot. I just had beef, potatoes, carrots, and onions. And I think I tried it twice, and the second time I was a little bit better. So I actually have some more meat in the freezer. I just haven't wanted to do it lately, but I'll probably do it maybe over the weekend or sometime next week, depending on how things go. The other thing recently I did the last week and a half, 2 weeks, is I have some of those what you call soup mixes, right? It's Bob's Red Mill Veggie Soup Mix. It's like these little pieces of like pasta, beans, whatnot. And, typically, same thing. You throw it into some hot water, let it cook for like an hour or so, and obviously have water and maybe put some seasoning. So with the Instant Pot, I said, I read a recipe online that said, take a cup of the soup mix, maybe throw in some vegetables, throw in some seasoning, whatever you want, and cook it for an hour. So I did that a lot of times this past few weeks. And in fact, I just did it tonight, but I'll explain what I did tonight. The first couple of times, I said, the only change I did in the recipe was I followed the water, but the first time I did it, I think I put too much salt. And I was like, ugh, it was bad. And I also added pasta, and some frozen vegetables in there, and I let it cook all the way through. Problem is, when I got done, and this recommended Instapot setting for this particular recipe was about 10 minutes, right? So when it came out, the pasta was completely soaked, a little bit messed up. Vegetables were not looking too good, so I'm like, ooh, that was bad. So unfortunately, I tried it again a second time. It's one of those things, right? Why bother? If you're expecting something to change, why do the same thing? So I was like, okay, I finally had an idea. Let me try something different tonight. In fact, I did a bunch of different things tonight. So the first thing was I just threw the soup mix in and let it go for 10 minutes. And then once that got done, I opened it up, got the steam out, and I said, okay, I'm going to throw the pasta in and the frozen vegetables, and I'm going to repressurize the pot for like maybe a minute or two. So I did it for a couple of minutes this time, and it came out good. Pasta was tender. The vegetables were not completely destroyed. And, I'm like, hey, that was a plus. The other thing I did was just kind of an out of the blue idea. I was looking around the kitchen yesterday or day before, and I guess my dad had, at some point, I don't know when, bought me a rice cooker, which I didn't even realize I had. I don't really cook much rice at home these days, but, I have some just in case for the emergencies. But I said, oh, I have a rice cooker, so I can cook rice if I wanted to. But my dad had suggested I do some steaming for like, frozen dim sum and all those kind of things. So I'm like, well, I don't have any frozen dim sum and I didn't want to buy any at the store today. I went out. So I'm like, but I was like, I've heard of people steaming meat, beef, chicken, whatever. I bought some small pieces of like taco meat, not the best cuts of meat, but I said I was going to keep it simple and maybe stir fried and add it to any of the dinners and whatnot that I was going to eat. But I said, you know what, if I'm making this kind of soup thing with pasta and vegetables, some meat would be nice. So, I poured 3 cups of water, well, actually 2 3/4 cups of water, had a little bit of beef stock, put in the beef on the little strainer thing at the top so the steam will sit above the hot water, and let it go for about 20 minutes, 25. Actually, this was in concurrent while I was cooking the soup. So overall, the meat came out pretty well. I did it for 27 minutes just to make sure the temperature was right. I could have done it at 25. Meat tasted not bad. Maybe a little shorter would have been okay, but it was all right. And along with the soup, I don't like to put too much salt in, so I didn't season it a lot. But you know what? Hey, I'm cooking. I'm making different things, so I now have some things to play around and experiment with. So the other thing that I'm going to work on going forward is, I was talking to my friend about maybe doing some curry chicken with the Instapot, but I don't have any chicken in the freezer, and I have potatoes, but I don't have the curry sauce and stuff, so which is okay. But that'll be something I will definitely consider once, hopefully, maybe the next time I make a run to the store. Today I just got some basic stuff just so I could hang in here while I'm at home for however long we need to be. So that's my cooking expertise. Let's see, what did I have next on my agenda? The next item agenda, I was just watching CNN. So from Chris Cuomo was talking about mental health, and he was trying to talk to a doctor or a director of some mental health or a hospital of some sort, and how people's mental health. Make sure that you stay well. Make sure you acknowledge your feelings. Make sure you, get some help if you need it. I'm not going to try to re-quote Chris Cuomo and all that. He did his best to get things out. I'm just going to speak from more personal experience, right? Mental health, if you've been struggling, you get a little worried with the virus, money, job, family, you get a little antsy, you feel like kind of, you're kind of closed in. You can't, you feel like, damn, I want to go out. You know what? If you feel bad, don't. I think everyone is perfectly entitled to feel that way. Even I'm usually optimistic, positive. But, occasionally, when you're stuck at home, like, dang, I wish I could go out. Man, I wish I could, hang out with friends more, right? All of that stuff. So it's important to acknowledge that for most of us, mental health, we're fairly normal for most of us. And we can probably handle these situations, especially those who have families. You got other people in the house, you can probably talk to them, and they may keep you company too, and that definitely helps. For me, being kind of by myself could be a little bit of a challenge, but I've managed. And I'll make a note of some other things how I've been helped out in dealing with stuff in the next thing I want to talk about. But there are people who have mental health issues in general, and being stuck alone is a struggle because they can't talk to their doctors, therapists, all those kind of things. And I get that. I can't speak from that experience. But I will say, having, had some anxiety issues in the past, if you do feel any type of struggle, make sure you talk to someone, and make sure you talk to friends. Make sure you, if you need to, talk to a doctor, therapist. There's people online. I know some folks who are therapists. If you need some recommendations, whatever the case may be, just let's make sure that you stay well. It's obviously a struggle, a lot of worries going on, and I don't blame people if they're not feeling right. Physically is one thing, mentally is definitely another thing, right? Physically, you can, that's why people take a walk, try to exercise, playing some video games like I've been, but mentally is a little bit of a different story, right? Because people sometimes, they might not be feeling right and they don't know how to express it, or maybe they feel embarrassed if they say, I'm not feeling right. I'm feeling a little lonely. I'm feeling like claustrophobic, feeling a little off. Make sure you get it out. I think getting it out will definitely make you feel better. With that being said, that's also one of my last topics is, thanks to friends. Personally, for myself, of course, but also if you've got friends that you've been talking to, family, whatever, hey, make sure you show them some love and appreciation, right? Because without them, for a lot of us, right, we would be kind of feeling a little bit alone. So from my perspective, I'm not going to name names. Some people don't want to be named publicly, but, thanks to one friend, longtime friend, we talk almost every day, check in on ourselves. Some days, we get busy and we're tired. We don't talk. That's okay. But you know what? Talking every day to this friend is helpful, just to check in on how their work's doing, because they have a job and things could be stressful. They check in on me because they know I'm, by myself, but also, I'm looking for jobs and whatnot. So, so thanks to that friend for, being available all the time. Thanks to some friends on Sundays that I've been talking to. Originally, it was started with just a couple of friends, but we branched out to have a few folks try to join us. Last weekend, we only had one person, which is fine because people were busy. But, with the original two friends, we actually talked yesterday after my job interview, and, it's been good, right? One friend has kids and a husband that she got to deal with. Another friend's like me, kind of by herself, and she's got some things she's got to deal with. So it's good for all of us just to check in, because my friend with the kids and the family, that's one big struggle she has to deal with. Me, I've got the struggle with the job, and then our other friend's got some other health things she got to deal with. We all need support in all of these crazy times, and so I've been thankful for them being available to talk. And, like I said about the mental health part, sometimes just talking makes things feel a lot better. So just keep that in mind. A couple other things, people to thank, some of my basketball folks. Especially one of our guys, veteran guys, runs a regular Zoom thing on Thursdays. He skipped it today because his daughter's birthday, which is fine. But he's been running some regular Zoom things, and a few of us have joined just to play games and hang out. Also, a couple of basketball folks, a few guys I talked to via text, just talking about random things, making fun of each other. So, it's always good to do that. Then I have another group text with some other guy friends, right? Those guy friends, we talk about unemployment, job, we talk about family, we talk about school. Maybe not as much for me because they have kids, most of them, but some of them are like talking about their crazy cooking with steaks and stuff. I'm like, well, good to read. Food looks great. Wish I can eat some, but I'm not that gourmet of a cook, but it's good to stay involved and see how things are going. And lastly, just, thanks to Facebook people. I still have some chats I talk to on Facebook every now and then. I'm participating on the Facebook groups on mental health, on Asian type issues, and also just the friends on Facebook who comment on my various posts, especially the ones that were thanking me for, wishing me good luck for my job interview that I had. So, thanks to everybody. You know what? Social media gets a bad rap because, if you go stare at social media too much, you can get depression or feel bad that you don't have as much to do. But you know what? When everybody is almost effectively in the same situation, stuck at home, just being able to communicate via phone, via Zoom, via email, via text, via Facebook or Instagram, whatever your platform of choice, it's actually been a blessing, and I'm thankful for it. So thanks to everybody that I've been able to see. So anyways, I think I've gone on for quite a while. I want to wish everyone some good health. Stay inside if you can, even though I did go out to get some groceries and see my dad and get some stuff for myself and for him. So please stay well. I don't know how long this thing's going to last, but I hope everybody stays healthy. I hope to see the folks that I play basketball with sooner than later. Job-wise, like I said, I thank you for all the good wishes. I'm hopeful that something positive will come out soon. If not for the last job interview, maybe something else down the line. All right, folks, have a great rest of your day by the time you listen to this, and the weekend. I will, we'll see if there's anything interesting. Maybe I'll start posting more again. But for now, I will catch you soon. Have a great rest of your time. Take care. Bye.